According to recent data from the Civil Aviation Authority, only around 75% of all flights leaving the UK arrive on time. And according to the Office of Rail and Road, only around 67% of trains depart or arrive on time. That means that around a quarter to a third of all trains and planes in the UK are delayed. Now, transport delays have a significant impact on people's daily schedules, their finances, their well-being, and even their job security. In fact, public opinion has declined so much in recent years that transport services now offer compensation in the event of delays. But what they offer is not always clear, and as you'll see, companies can be really very sneaky in order to get out of paying. So that's why I've decided to make this short video here today, because if you follow the instructions that I've set out for you, we can prevent these companies continuing to get away with poor service and start helping people claim the rightful compensation for the losses they suffer. So in part one of the video, we'll be discussing airline delays and the relative compensations. And in part two of the video, we'll be discussing train line delays, including tips on how to maximize your compensation and chances of a full refund. And I'll do it all in just under 7 minutes. For anyone new to the channel, my name is Cal, your personal travel size lawyer, here to educate people on their basic legal rights, which no one else seems to be doing right now. So let's get into it. Let's start with flights. Then delays happen all the time, yes, but under certain circumstances, you're entitled to compensation or assistance. So when does compensation apply? Well, if you're flying from the UK or the EU, or if you're flying into the UK or the EU on an airline based in the UK or EU like British Airways or Ryanair, then you're protected by UK and EU flight compensation rules. Now, here's where compensation may apply under those rules. Number one, if your flight is delayed by at least 3 hours. Now, the key is the arrival time, not when you take off. So if you're 3 hours late landing at your destination, then you're eligible to make a claim. Now, the reason it's based on the arrival time is because airlines will try to make up time in the air by flying faster, I guess, so as to avoid paying compensation. And secondly, compensation may apply if the delay is the airline's fault. Now, this includes things like technical issues with the plane, staffing problems. However, if the delay is caused by an extraordinary circumstance like severe weather or air traffic control strikes, which are out of the control of the airline, then in my experience, they're not likely to offer you compensation. But I want to give you a little bit more information here because airlines will try to rely a lot on what is the grey area around airline fault. And you need to know what to call them out on. So let's quickly look at what counts as airline fault. Number one, airline fault is technical issues with the aircraft. Now, if a plane has a mechanical or technical fault, which seems to happen all the time to me, is the airline's responsibility. Back in 2015, a court ruled in favour of a passenger who was delayed because of a faulty wiring issue. These were considered technical problems, which are part of the airline's duty to maintain their planes. Number two, staffing problems. This is also the airline's fault. Airlines are responsible for proper staffing to ensure flights run on time. Number three, issues with boarding or overbooking. This one really bothers me. I've had such bad experiences with budget UK airlines overbooking their flights and then angry customers causing delays on the flights. This is the airline's fault. Make sure you are compensated. And number four, operational errors. This basically just means general operational logistics. For example, if your flight is delayed because the catering truck is late or the ground staff miscalculate luggage distribution, then that's also on the airline. It's part of the airline logistics and it's the airline's fault. So with that out of the way, now let's look at how much compensation can I get. Now, compensation depends on the length of the delay and the distance of the flight. But here is a really quick breakdown. Bear in mind the rules for the EU and the UK are the same here. And you can see who they apply to, as I explained before, and when they apply, including cases of denied boarding, for example, or in overbooking cases. So as you can see here, the longer the delay and the further the destination, the bigger the payout, which is not bad, right? But what about for shorter delays? Because let's face it, the majority of the delays we probably experience are not beyond 3 hours. So let's have a look at those entitlements. So if your delay is more than 2 hours, then the airline must provide you with basic care. What does basic care mean? Basic means meals, refreshments, usually in the form of vouchers, free phone calls, emails, messages. Probably not the most useful as people have their own phones. And also, finally, hotel accommodation if your delay, which as a result of the airline's fault, has meant an overnight stay is required. But make sure if that is you, make sure the airline also arrange transport to and from the hotel. That is also your right. Now, if you've spoken to the airline or someone from the airline, they're saying they don't offer these things, then here's what to do. Keep all the receipts of your expenditure incurred while you were delayed. And you can claim reimbursement later on with those receipts from the airline on their website. But look, don't go overboard. They're not going to reimburse you if you go and get a 5-course steak dinner whilst you're waiting a couple of hours for your delayed flight. Now, here's some really quick tips for maximizing maximizing the compensation, making sure you don't miss out on it. Number one, make sure to document everything. Take pictures of the delay board, keep your boarding pass. And finally, this is really important, get a written confirmation from the airline explaining the cause of the delay. Do this as soon as possible. This is really important. You don't want to allow them too much time to blame it on something else. Number two, act fast but stay polite. Airlines are more likely to process your claim quickly if you remain courteous. Remember, manners go a long way when it comes to compensation claims, as you also may find it's at the discretion of the individual that you're speaking to. Now, the third tip is to use an online claim tool. Now, many airlines have forms on their website, and you can and should try these first, but if you lack time, then there are some third-party services who can do this for you. They'll take a small percentage of your payout, yes, but these companies specialize in compensation claims, so admittedly have worked for me in the past. Make sure to give them, however, all of the documentation that I told you to collect prior. And tip number four, know your rights and escalate it if you need to. If the airline is still refusing your claim and you genuinely believe you are entitled, then don't give up. You can escalate your complaint to the Civil Aviation Authority. All right, now let's take a look at train delays, as this for many people is a far more common occurrence. So let's take a look first at when can you claim compensation for train line delays. Now, in the UK, most train companies operate under a scheme called Delay Repay. It's designed to compensate passengers for delays regardless of the cause. Yes, you heard that right. Unlike flights, even if your delay is due to bad weather or signal fails, you can still claim. The key factor, however, is again how late you arrive at your destination. So here is the usual breakdown. So as you can see here, the amount of compensation is dependent and proportional on the amount of the delays, starting at 25% of the ticket price for delays over 15 minutes, up to a full refund for delays over an hour. But beware, however, not all operators offer the 15-minute delay compensation. Many of them only offer for delays beyond 30 minutes. All of this depends on the operator themselves. All you have to do is just check their website for their terms. Now, as for how to claim the compensation in these events, it's fairly straightforward, but you need to act quickly with train line delays. So number one, go online. Most train companies have a delay repay section on their website, as I mentioned. Number two, gather all your proof. So you'll need evidence like your ticket, your journey information, the date and time of the delay. If you have a digital ticket, make sure you keep the confirmation email. And then step three is to submit your claim online. You'll often have a time limit to do this. However, it's usually 28 days from the date of travel, so don't wait too long. Now, really quickly, here's 3 useful tips I've learned on how to streamline the process and maximize the amount of compensation you receive. So number one is to claim for indirect route delays. In other words, if a delay on one leg of your journey causes you to miss a connecting train, then you're entitled to compensation for both journeys. Just remember to save the documentation, evidence and proof of both journeys. And 2, a tip for season ticket holders. So if you're a season ticket holder for a train service, make sure that you are registered with the train operator's compensation scheme online so that you can get automatic refunds for delays and don't have to keep going through this process every single time yourself. And finally, what about cancellations? Well, if your train is cancelled and you decide not to travel, then you're entitled to a full refund. Alternatively, if you want to travel still, the train company can arrange for you another journey at no extra cost. So speak to them and ask them to do that for you. So hopefully with this information, you are now equipped to properly handle public transport delays in the future and ensure that you are compensated for the time that you lose. If you have any of your own experiences or suggestions that have worked for you and you'd like to share them, please post them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. I'll reply to as many of you as I can. And as usual, if you have liked or learned anything of value from this video, then please subscribe and get notified, because I spend a lot of hours creating videos to teach people their legal rights, and I'd love to continue to do that. Finally, remember, this is not legal advice. This is purely educational content. That being said, I'll see you in the next video.